Good afternoon, everyone, and I would like to welcome you to the January 28th meeting of the Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority for Harrisburg. We have a quorum present, and so we are ready to begin, and I will call the meeting to order. First up, I need to inform the public pursuant to the open meetings law that on January 14th, we met in executive session. The purpose of the executive session was to discuss a matter of pending litigation. So with that, then let's proceed to approval of the minutes for the December 17th meeting. Those were distributed in advance. Are there any comments, corrections, additions to the minutes?
So moved.
Motion to approve. Second. Comments on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, chair report. Well, it's been a busy couple weeks. Your diary. A lot of what has been going on, we'll be discussing in more detail under our first agenda item. But apart from that, I just wanted to let the board know that we've done a couple things relative to economic development. I had an interview with Penn Live, and then separate from that, I was on a Penn Live community forum panel to talk about economic development. And then I was also invited in my capacity with ICA for the meeting that the governor convened with the mayor, representatives of council, representatives of a number of interests throughout the city to talk about economic development. Very good meeting, went better than 2 hours, good cross-section of community interests in the room. The governor stayed for most of it. A couple cabinet secretaries, chief of staff, and others were in the room as well. Basically, I think it was productive. Among other things, the governor expressed a clear commitment that if we, the city, and its many interests can get together with a common vision and specific deliverables, that we can present them to him, and he will do what he can to find funding sources appropriate to match those projects and initiatives. So altogether, a good meeting. We've also had a couple follow-up conversations with CREDIC, and you all recall that we have approved providing $50,000 in seed money to CREDIC as a part of the initiative they're undertaking for revitalization plan for downtown. CREDIC will also be receiving funding directly from the Commonwealth. They will be working with the Pennsylvania Downtown Center, who will manage the project, and there may be additional consulting help as a part of that. The target is to have a plan in place in about 6 months from commencement, and it will include specific deliverable projects as a part of that. So we're looking forward to getting all that underway. Later on, we may be talking about I guess we're just waiting for our final version of the MOU.
Correct. So the agreement with CREDIC for the $50,000 grant is,
Right.
I was hoping to have a draft ready for the board today, but I did not complete that task first.
Okay. But as I understand, I have authorization from the board, knowing the content, to sign and execute, so we get the funding out to. So.
Correct.
And then also I met with the mayor yesterday, and it was more of a generalized discussion. We talked about city finances in broadest perspective, budget administration, and she gave me an update on progress on collective bargaining. So all very good. And I think that's all.
What they're concerned about here.
Sorry. So for the public has an opportunity to comment. We will recognize public comment when there are matters in front of the board for consideration. But the public comment is just comment, not interrogation. The public comment is just comment, not.
Or did you say the mayor? You met with the mayor and she said something.
Okay, I met with the mayor on general economic conditions, on matters of budget administration, on collective bargaining. Forgive me, I thought you were asking a follow-up question, so my apologies. Okay. All right, with that, then we will follow into our discussion on the litigation now pending between the mayor and Harrisburg City Council. For those of you late to the party, this is, relates to action council took in the budget to defund 4 specific positions, under the mayor's direct report. The mayor vetoed the amendments, that, rescinded those positions, and then council met to override. And so officially at this point, those positions are unfunded. To my understanding, 3 of the individuals affected are no longer in city employ. One is because she was only partially defunded. The bulk of her funding comes from HUD administrative funds. So the litigation was filed by the mayor against council. The intent is to argue that the positions are necessary and need to be reinstated. The initial petition was for injunctive relief, and then the matter would go to trial on merits. The hearing on those points was last week. I was actually subpoenaed to testify as well. The only 3 who testified were the mayor, myself, and former city business administrator Sam Sokowski. The judge directed counsel for both sides, gave me 10 days to file briefs, after which he would rule on the preliminary injunction and then schedule trial if necessary. I have no additional information to furnish other than the fact that at the time of the hearing, we were in the process of preparing an amicus brief. The amicus brief itself was the subject of the executive session I referred to earlier. That was the outcome of it. Given the timing of it, we could not wait until this meeting to authorize its filing, so we proceeded with the filing. The amicus brief is a public document. It's available. Did we post it on our website?
We did not,
Yeah,
we can.
okay, but it's available through the court. As is the relevant correspondence that we filed, and was the reason that I was called to testify. So specifically, what happened after the budget was passed by council with the 4 positions deleted, we met. Our December meeting was 2 days after that. We adopted the letter that we were obliged to do by the statute to advise council and the mayor on our view of the budget. And we had a number of very specific comments, but one of them was a paragraph relating to those 4 positions in particular. In essence, we said that 3 of the positions, in our view, needed to be funded. 1, because it was a statutory requirement, but the 3 in general, because they are necessary in our view for proper fiscal administration and proper economic growth for the city. So that's the business administrator, the housing and economic development director, and then the economic development / LERDA director. The 4th position we did not opine on it. We didn't believe it was part of our purview. We said specifically that our commentary did not relate to the matters that were under dispute between the mayor and council, nor did it relate to the individuals who were incumbent in the position at the time, but rather our view was that they were necessary for the proper administration of the city. So that's the point that we were called to present testimony on. Once the letter was submitted, then the mayor, a couple days, December 24th, issued her veto, and then council convened the following Monday, I believe it was, to consider override, and they subsequently did. That Monday morning, I sent an email to council, essentially reiterating the points that we had raised in our letter relative to the 3 positions, and I excerpted the letter. Both the letter and that email were part of the evidentiary matters submitted, and they were also part of the amicus that we filed with the court. Our amicus talks primarily about our concern that protracted litigation is harmful to the city in two respects. Number one, it delays a resolution to the matter for staffing those positions, and secondarily, it expends can expend a fair amount of city funds that we didn't think were necessary. Instead, arguing that the court direct there be some kind of mediation instead convened between the mayor and council to get the matter resolved. So I'll turn to my counsel if I stated anything factually incorrect or anything that should be added.
No, that was factually correct. I have nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. And at this point, as I indicated, we have the litigation pending. We have the deadline coming up this week for submittal of the briefs, and then I think that's tomorrow. And then we don't know what the court's schedule will be to issue an opinion following that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
is it possible that we can ask general counsel to just briefly explain what an amicus brief is and what the status that you all determine the ICA should take as being an amicus as opposed to an actual party to the litigation? I think that would be
All right,
helpful.
take a run over if you would like to go ahead.
Certainly, I'd be happy.
Okay.
The ICA is a state agency that's tasked with overseeing the financial recovery of the city of Harrisburg. In that capacity, the board deliberated whether or not the board would seek to intervene in the litigation as a party with respect to the litigation between the city and the mayor, or instead take the position of what's called an amicus or amicus curiae, meaning a friend of the court position. And the board elected to seek amicus status with through the court. We filed a petition with the court, and if that was granted. So as a friend of the court, we're then given permission to prepare and file a brief that was submitted to the court, providing our position with respect to the litigation between the two parties without taking a position as to the substantive rights of, in this case, the mayor versus city council as it relates to the budget approval process, but wanting to enlighten the court as to our role with respect to the city of Harrisburg and its financial recovery, and provide perhaps different perspective for the court to consider when looking at the petition for injunctive relief that was filed by the mayor. And it's a helpful process. It's not often that courts at the trial court level will grant a party amicus status, but I was pleased that that Judge Engel elected to approve our request and to allow us to voice perspective.
A question about procedure, Michael, would it be in the interest of the board to sort of ratify the decision of filing the amicus brief in this public session? So that there's a record of the vote of the board to that effect?
I think that would be appropriate, just to have that memorialized within the minutes of this meeting. Yes.
Okay. Should we just proceed with that right now, and then we'll continue the discussion? Okay. Do I have a motion on filing of the amicus? So moved. Second, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The other thing too is that we have been trying as an organization to work with parties from both sides, offering our assistance as we can to help with resolution of the matter at hand. In the time between council passage of the budget and mayor's veto of the amendments, I did have an opportunity to speak with the mayor, and then I had coffee with Council President David Hill, and I had coffee separately with then Vice President, Al Green, just in broad strokes to talk about where their positions were, because at that point we were between their action and the veto. Again, to reiterate our interest in a prompt resolution, a non-litigious resolution, and the importance of the positions. Okay. With that, comments from members of the board?
So at this point, Michael, there's no next step that the board is taking as part of this process of being an amicus curiae party to the litigation.
That's correct. There's no action for the board to take. At this point in time, we are awaiting the filing of the briefs by the council for the mayor and city council. We'll review those briefs, and that will inform us on next steps. As part of our brief, we did, as Chair Hill mentioned, we did ask or suggest that the court consider moving the parties towards an alternative dispute resolution process to involve mediation, and we volunteered our assistance in that process, not to mediate the resolution, but to perhaps help bring the parties together. So we'll wait and see if the court embraces our recommendation or not.
Right.
But I do, we'll have to wait and see where the court goes following the submission of those briefs.
Thank you. So the only other matter pertinent at the moment is under the city code and the charter law, every city has the opportunity in the year following a municipal election to reopen its budget and then to adopt changes to the budget and to the tax ordinance. The window to reopen is through January 31st, and then final action has to be taken by February 15th, as I recall. And so we're also waiting to see whether, because that will be the initiative of the mayor, we'll have to see whether the mayor does in fact take that next step, and then how council responds to that as well. My consideration is that if that does occur, if the mayor does present that to council, that it would be consistent with the position that we've taken thus far for me to be in touch with the mayor and council to say that we support the reopener and we support the reinstatement of the positions. Perhaps qualifying it that if they need to find a resolution to at least put the money back in without having agreement on who the individuals will be to fill the positions, that's fine, but at least to get the money in there as placeholder for that discussion. The city council, and this is the lawyer council, will have to make a determination on timing, I believe. And then there is, to my understanding in practice in Pennsylvania, some leeway to do additional budget adjustments throughout the year anyhow. So this unique post-municipal election year provision really relates more to reopening the tax ordinance than it does to reopening the budget. So if they don't hit the deadline, that doesn't mean it's impossible to fund the position again. And I think the theory and practice behind that is a budget is in some respects a flexible document. You don't know during the course of the year when you're going to have a catastrophic matter happen, or whether you are going to find some unanticipated funding. You do have to have the flexibility to be able to meet those current conditions. So there still is remedy available for these four positions if a formal reopener is not presented and acted on. That's correct. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, our letter about the letter that the ICA board approved relative to the original budget approval is on our website.
Yes.
The only question I would ask is that if there's a budget reopener, which we have not yet had in our existence, I think there's some, except I should say that's not entirely true. I believe when Mayor Williams was first elected, she did reopen the budget. And if memory serves, we issued a second letter, sort of a follow-up
Okay,
budget opinion letter following the reopening of the budget. Obviously, that's at the discretion of the board, but you might consider whether or not there's time in all of these moves to allow the ICA board to have, make a statement on
Okay.
whatever the reopener content might be. You don't have it today, obviously, because it hasn't happened yet.
and our next meeting would not be scheduled officially until after,
Our next meeting is February, 25th.
right?
So
So were we to need to take action, we'd have to schedule a special meeting.
we might have to set a special meeting
Okay,
in
so,
February.
so we'll put that warning shot out there.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Keep everything on track.
Okay, and thank you for that reminder. Board members, any discussion, any thoughts?
Commentary, I support the idea of sending a second letter, reiterating the position, just to keep it on the record.
I support that as well. I will let the chair know at this time that I am traveling in part of February. So I will not, out of the country, so I will not be available
For
for
a special
some
meeting.
period of
Okay.
time.
All right, thank
We'll
you.
figure it out.
Good.
That's assuming
That becomes a problem because of the vacancies on the board and the fact that we need all three of us here to have quorum to take any action.
We'll cross the bridge.
Very good. Okay, other comments, other members of the board? Very good. Stay tuned. Okay, and so we did discuss the. Yeah, well,
Well, I think the second point was the impact on the 5-year plan. as well.
thank you. And so impact on the 5-year plan is immaterial relative to the actual numbers. The question I was actually asked on the stand. But it is material to the point that the 5-year plan does call for a comprehensive economic development plan to be developed by the city. And it calls for, as it always does, it's continuing strong administrative practices on the city's behalf. So that is directly impacted by the lack of a city business manager. So there is a material effect on the 5-year plan. Normally, at this meeting, when we discuss the 5-year plan, we would simply accept the adopted budget as an amendment to the 5-year plan, unless there was some material change in the budget. The overall numbers didn't change significantly from what was reflected in the plan. I think we'll hear a report a little bit later on how the year finished out, which will be a little bit different from what was presented there, if I understand correctly. But nonetheless, the largest effect will be resolution of those 4 positions. And so I anticipate, obviously, we are not in a position today to do anything about that. So we may revisit the matter on the agenda of our February. Anything additional on that point?
Just, you're making me think about when you say the 5-year plan too, Jeff, but would that kind of dovetail nicely to the annual 203 report that gets done by the end of April?
Yeah, well, hopefully, way before that, we get to the annual section 203 report.
Right.
We'll have a finished budget
That-
and some first quarter numbers upon which to have a report in April.
Right, I'm hoping all the smoke is cleared by then, so the update essentially for your report would be working into it, what
Will change.
will transpire over the next
Correct.
so many weeks.
But if you remember correctly from last year, we usually do an in-between step where we accept the budget as a plan update.
Okay,
So there's the budget
you still need that.
and then the annual report in April.
Okay,
So there'll still be 3 steps, but obviously things as we sit here get a little up in the air. But it'll become clearer.
that sounds good. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so anything additional at all on the budget plan? Let's proceed then to our next agenda item, which is the update on the city's installation of enterprise resource planning. Steve,
Good afternoon.
please come on up.
Your stars, dude. It's in there.
And for those in the audience, this is an update of the work that the city's had underway for a couple of years right now to get past its legacy software systems and hardware systems and to get from our perspective, management systems in place that are both up to date and system and agency wide so that the city has the best possible handle on its finances and best possible administrative capacity. So welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
And you may need to speak up since you're not facing the audience. Our HVAC is kind of noisy here.
Okay, so the project itself is called the Operation Municipal Migration Project. And basically it is a pretty large project to migrate all of our homegrown mainframe systems, as well as our payroll system and our finance system onto the Munis platform, which is a cloud-based solution. So the project gets started about mid-2022. And it's a 6-phase project, and I'll kind of go into detail on each of those. So the first one was our financials phase, and that got completed at the beginning of 2023. So we've been live with financials for 3 years now. So as Brian can attest to, there have been some bumps along the way, but we've been able to work through them. We've had to get the vendor involved with when we've had some issues, but all in all, things are going pretty well. And as part of that, we converted 3 years of history off of the e-finance system. So that system's been retired, although we still can access it for historical data if we need to. And then as part of that, we also converted our capital assets into the system. So that was a piece that I'll talk about in a later phase as well. And then also we have inventory in our mailroom and then the parts at VMC. So those are used within the system as well so that they can identify what's on hand, what needs to be ordered, and what the costs are when they do need to go order them. So again, it's been 3 years and all in all, going pretty well so far. The second phase is our human capital management, which is kind of a 2-pronged piece. One, to get the personnel system off the mainframe, as well as our payroll system, which is paychecks. And I guess it's been probably 6 months or so ago, we made the decision not to migrate into the Munis component of that piece of the system. So the biggest reason for that is we would have had to do all the tax filing and reporting internally, which is something we don't have to do today. So it was a risk that we felt was probably not worth it. So we kind of put the brakes on that. And Bob's leading an effort to migrate to the Paycom system. So that contract is in negotiation right now in our law bureau. So I think Bob said they're down to the final stages of that. So hopefully that will get finalized soon and we can get started with the migration of the data from the mainframe onto the Paycom system. The good news is we've already got a lot of the conversion programs written to extract the data so that we can then get it into the Paycom system. The third phase is tax billing and collections, which is for city and school real estate taxes. So as part of that, we had to develop new tax forms that would be used for if they want to make a payment in full or partial payments throughout the year. So that piece is being worked on. We're in the final stages of verifying what those new tax bills will look like. And as part of that, there'll be 20 years worth of historical tax data converted into the system. The fourth phase is the largest in scope, and that is our business licenses and codes enforcement. We're converting, as part of the business licenses, 20 years worth of business license data. And that is part of codes. We're converting everything that we have in the system, just because properties change hands, things happen with property. So we need to make sure we keep all of that data in the system. The fifth phase is utility billing and collections, which is for our trash bills, monthly trash bills. So we have a custom form for that, which they're in the process of developing now. And I should have a first cut of that within the next couple of weeks that we can look at to see what that looks like. And as part of that, we're converting 10 years worth of historical data. And the reason we're only doing 10 years because we didn't want to convert any of the water data that was segregated off of the trash bill. So it's just strictly the trash bill. And then the sixth phase was kind of a new phase, or really wasn't data to convert, but it's our asset maintenance phase. And that's used primarily by VMC to do work orders on the vehicles. And that system was implemented in February of 2024. And since then, they've entered over 3,000 work orders against vehicles to do oil changes, tire rotation, whatever needed to be done. So all that's tracked. They have iPads that they can use out in the garage to track all the work that they're doing for that. So that piece has been going pretty well. And then I mentioned in the financials phase, the capital assets, which we converted, which when they do work orders, they're going against vehicles, which are capital assets. And then there's other assets that we converted as well as part of this phase, or imported as part of this phase, that they have in spreadsheets so that they can use as part of those work orders. So I kind of breezed through the three revenue phases. Those are the ones that bring the money into the city. And right now, the biggest holdup on moving any of those forward is how we're going to handle online payments, credit card, debit card, PayPal, things like that. When we started, we were going to use our existing vendor, which is Value Payment Systems, but they, at some point, probably a year or so ago, decided that they're not going to support working with Munis anymore. So we kind of had to rethink how we're going to do that. And the recommendation from Tyler Technologies was to use global payments, which interfaces seamlessly with Munis. So a customer will go on, they see all their accounts, they could make the payment and it would go into the system. We haven't finalized that yet because Treasury is looking at a different vendor through a different solution through JP Morgan Chase, which does not interface seamlessly with Munis. So that's a problem because how would they know who the customers are, what their account number is, how much they owe? Can they make a partial payment? Do they have to make a full payment? So all those things need to be ironed out. And what we do today with Value Payment Systems, we have to send them files every day of all of the accounts. What's the account number? What's the balance? And it's a babysitting exercise. We have to make sure they get them. And then we have to get a payment file the next day that has to get imported into the mainframe systems by Treasury. So there's a lot of moving parts there where if we use global payments, it would be a seamless thing and it would be pretty transparent to the customer when they're making a payment. So that's the biggest holdup at this point with moving those three revenue phases forward. Any questions on any of that before I move on to a couple other high level things?
I guess my threshold question is why the treasurer isn't interested in just going with global.
I
Yeah,
think because they want to, and I guess in their mind, they're an independent office. They can do what they want.
Understood.
So, I guess we need to have more discussions with them about
Okay.
that. I've only been in one meeting
Okay.
with JP Morgan Chase, and I really didn't get any answers to anything that interests me. Brian's kind of been my microphone for what's going on with them, because I haven't been involved in the meeting, so.
Okay.
I think there's supposed to be another meeting in a week or so with them. I wasn't on the email chain, Brian forwarded it to me, so hopefully I'll sit in on that, but. At some point, I think we need to sit down with Treasury and say, hey. We can't go that route because we're gonna be doing the same thing we're doing now, which is sending files every day, which is not the most efficient way to do things.
It seems to me it also has, by having the extra step, also has vast opportunity for inaccuracies.
And there have been some of those along the way, yes.
Two related questions. Who makes the final decision? Does that have to go before city council? And secondly, are you aware of any price differential between the two systems?
Your first question, it does not have to go through city council. We do have a steering committee that meets, or scheduled to meet every 2 weeks, and we address, issues like that that are part of the project that we make decisions. Our project chair is the business administrator, which we don't have right now, so, he was part of the discussions we had at some of our steering committee meetings about where we're at with that process. So I think at some point, we're gonna have to potentially get the mayor involved and say, hey, we need to move forward with this and we'll use.
To follow up, I presume there, you would have to have a contract though with either Chase or with.
That is correct, yes.
So that would you have to go to council.
We, for contracts that are part of this project, we have not gone to them.
Okay.
With
all right.
anything other than
Okay.
the original.
Got it. Okay.
Contract to decide to go with the system.
And price differential, if you know?
So Tyler uses, has one or two different options. What they use directly in the system is called Tyler Payments. And then Global Payments is the other one that interfaces seamlessly. So what we did, we took all of the 2023 online payments and did a comparison. What did the customer pay? What would they have paid under Tyler Payments? And what would they have paid under Global Payments as far as a fee goes? Because the fees get passed on to the customers. So Tyler Payments, the fees were a lot higher across the board. There were only, I don't have the numbers, I'm gonna guess 16,000 payments. And only a couple of hundred would have paid less using Tyler Payments. So that's why we decided we don't want to pass extra costs on to the customers if we don't have to. Global Payments is more in line with the value payment fee structure. So that made it feel like, okay, we're gonna be able to present this to them and the fees will be relatively comparable to what they're paying today. As far as JP Morgan Chase, I have no idea what the fee structure is because I've been in one hour meeting and I've seen no documentation, nothing about it. So I have no idea what their fee structure would be.
Thank you.
Steve, still, Mr. Chairman, Steve, I just want to clarify that in the current situation with value payments, as well as the proposed new payment processing company, which is called Global Payments.
Right.
It is the plan that the citizens, the customers, whoever's paying the online payment would have to pay a fee.
Right.
And that's the current policy of the city, and that would still be, it might not be exactly the exact same fee.
Right.
But it would still be the policy of the city that the city's not absorbing those
That's
payments.
yeah, the city is
Passing it on to the, okay,
I mean, and when we're talking about a fee, most of the payments are for trash bills.
correct,
The
that's
fee,
the.
the minimum fee is $1. So that's all the customers pay. It is an extra $1. And if you put a stamp on an envelope,
I
you're paying
think
$1 anyhow. So
we've gotten to the point in our society where everybody's charging us a fee for
Right,
everything,
yeah.
but I do agree that it's important because obviously that's a policy of the city, whether or not to try to eat those fees and then raise rates.
Right.
Or to pass those fees on, and you're saying that decision's already been made.
Correct.
Currently
Correct.
and in the future, customers will pay the fee.
That's correct. And we've been using value payment systems for I'm guessing about 6 years now, so it's
And
been,
there's no fee if you come in and pay in person and.
if you pay it in the treasury office, there's no fee, unless you make a credit
Credit
card
card,
pay. Yes,
then there's
they
a
have a
fee.
machine that it would be, that's connected directly.
But if you came in and paid in person without a credit card.
Yeah, there's no fee there.
So you can avoid the fee,
Correct.
just takes a little more annual,
Or you can mail it in.
right, exactly.
Are other pay platforms accepted like direct bank checking or Venmo, PayPal, any of those?
We have ACH already where it's free, person can sign up for that.
Okay,
Unfortunately, we don't, I mean, we have several thousand, but out of 17,000 bills, it's not a
Right.
high
Okay.
percentage, but PayPal is one. Discover, MasterCard, Visa. I think those are the ones that we use today.
Mr. Chairman, just out of curiosity, you said that this version project start date was 2022, is that correct?
Mid-2022, yes.
I'm kind of curious as to why a conversion project like this has such a long runway.
Yeah, and I was gonna get in, I wanted to kind of give you an overview
Okay,
before I moved into some of the other. So I'll address your question.
okay, thank you.
proceed.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I mentioned the steering committee, we have scheduled meetings every 2 weeks. There's 12 members on the committee, we only normally get about 6 show up. And it's the same ones every meeting that are in attendance. As far as the project itself, we've had about 45 city employees working on the project since it started and put in about 11,600 hours. So every week they fill out a timesheet if they worked on a project, and then that gets tracked in a spreadsheet every week. As far as the project budget itself, what's been approved in contracts and POs is 1.7 million. We've expended 1.6 million of that, but of that 1.6 million, 992,000 is for the annual fee to be paid for 3 years. And then the implementation costs, which are the costs we pay when they work on the project, whether they're training us how to use the system or converting data or traveling, that's 590,000 of that amount. So we still have 161,000 remaining in the implementation costs. And we really haven't increased that since we started the project. So now getting to your question, Mr. Hancock, about the length of time. The biggest challenges have been resources, whether that's internal, finding time to work on the project versus, hey, I got these 17 things to do before lunchtime. So that balancing act is a struggle. And then on the Tyler side, we've had some turnover on their end as far as our implementation consultants go. Just about every phase, we've had 2 or 3 different people working with us to do the conversion, train us, and get us up to speed. So there have been some delays, particularly the last part of 2025, where we had very little movement, only because we were waiting on what we're gonna do with online payments. So we kind of didn't want to get too far down the track without having that piece to test when we were using their time and paying money for that. And we knew there was an election coming up in the fall, so we were kind of, I guess, putting things on hold until that was decided. And now that that's been decided, we can move forward with figuring out what we're going to do with the online payments. Couple of other things, because our mainframe systems are homegrown, we could make them do anything we want them to do. When you're buying an off-the-shelf system, it's not going to do everything your current system does. So trying to figure out how do we adapt without making changes to the system. So that's another item, and then it's another thing is the data conversion, making sure the accuracy of the data is 100%. We're on with utility billing, I think we're on our 7th or 8th iteration of converting data, putting it in the system, testing and making sure it's accurate. So there's a handful of reasons for the delay. Some of it being we put it on hold towards the latter half of 2025. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, but a couple follow-up questions.
Sure.
So, thank you. Can you translate these delays to cost from the $1.7 million budget? You said that you spent 1.6 million.
And of that 1.6, the 992 was just the 3 years of the SaaS fee, software as a service fee. So because we really weren't working on anything, we weren't paying them because they were not working as well. So there was really no cost being expended during that time when no work was being done.
Do you have a project manager? Where does the project manager for this project sit? Does it sit with the city or does it sit with your vendor?
I'm the project manager for the city, but
Okay.
then we've got a different project manager for the other phases of the project. Each phase has had its own unique project manager because they kind of specialize in certain areas of the system. And then we do have an account representative who we started with, and then that got transitioned to another gentleman probably a year or so.
So who reports up to your governance structure for, like, from a project manager perspective, who reports up to your governance structure for how the project is progressing? Is it you?
I'm the project manager.
So you yourself, right?
And then we have a steering, yes.
And, my last question, do you have any citizen stakeholders on the steering committee? In addition-
We do not.
you know,
We originally had city council, city controller, city treasurer, somebody from each of those offices, as well as the administration committee. So we had all of the various areas of the city government on the steering committee, but no citizens.
Thank you.
Kathy, anything?
Yes, thanks.
Other members of the board?
One question for Steve. Steve, I tend to recall that over time, the payroll decision was not the only time that the decision was made that switching to the Munis module had issues. And I'm thinking specifically, if I remember correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there was something to do with, it was either police or fire scheduling, that there was a decision that an additional software product was going to be necessary because Munis just wasn't up to snuff for what was needed. And I think there was one other, maybe if you can just for their knowledge, make sure our information is correct. Times that Tyler has not come throughout this project are a few now.
Right. And I'll address that in a minute. but-
Okay.
And one of our steering committee meetings, one of the members mentioned that they were talking to their counterpart. I'm not even gonna mention the municipality because I don't want to get it wrong, but they said they're migrating to Munis as well, and they're kind of in the same boat as we are, so
I've
we're
heard,
not unique.
no, I'm not, I agree. I've heard the same thing, but I just wanted to get the knowledge out. Those things we already know about, times where the decision has already been made, that perhaps we had to try a different solution in certain aspects of the implementation.
Right. So back to your question, as part of this, the scheduling for police and fire are very unique. And what happens is they do their scheduling and then they have to basically hand key that information into the mainframe for payroll purposes. So the Bureau of Fire uses a system called First Due for their scheduling. And they like that system and are going to continue to use that system. So there is an import facility within Munis that could have imported that, but since we're not going to Munis, that doesn't need to happen. With Paycom, they're still gonna continue to use First Due because they like that system. Bureau of Police, they were going to migrate to a system called Power Time. It was purchased and they started the implementation, but for whatever reason, it never got implemented. So I haven't been involved in the discussions. Bob's been involved in, but they made back off of that decision to go to Power Time and use what Paycom has. I don't know because I haven't been involved.
Jury's out.
Okay. So yes, that was something that we had some issues with.
And then just as a follow-up, this decision to use Paycom, which by the way, I'm familiar with also, it's a very widely used payroll and human management software. When that decision was made not to use the Munis module for HR, did that affect the arrangement of the finances with Tyler? Was there credit or was it used for some other part of what was done with Tyler?
So we made that decision after we had made our 2025 annual payment for the fee. So I guess it was probably, I'm gonna guess mid-year, we made that decision. So I've already informed them that we're going to not migrate to that portion of the system. So when our renewal for 2026 comes up, that piece will be deducted from what we owe. And that amount is roughly 45,000 that will come off of what we paid to Tyler in 2026.
Of course, there's
It'll go
to use Paycom.
Correct, yeah, so that would just be shifted over there. Correct.
Thank you, Rick.
Others?
Anyway, that's another question. So your project manager, I have to ask, how would you assess risk of, like, for a 4-year conversion project, how would you assess risk of failure for the conversion at this point? It sounds like you were able to, you have had some success with some components
Right.
of the conversion.
So very good question. It's something that kind of keeps me up some nights. Up until this point, it's kind of felt like an IT project where we're doing most of the work, but when we do migrate, the business units have to own this system. They have to know this system. So because of turnover and other commitments, it is a concern that folks in those various departments are going to take ownership of that system. And I'm not sure where the responsibility lies in each of those various business units taking that ownership. I know Brian did a very good job taking ownership of finances. And I wish we had more like him. I know in codes we have a couple of people who are really into it. Our business license mercantile department, I think they want to take ownership of it. So I think there's been a little bit of disappointment from some of those business units in the amount of effort that's been put in on the Tyler side to help them get up to speed with the system. And to me, it's kind of like walking into a cockpit the first time and looking at an instrument panel and they're saying, do you have any questions? Well, yeah, I have lots of questions, but I don't know anything. I don't even know what to ask. So that's kind of how I feel sometimes talking to them, that they're the experts. They're supposed to be training us. I don't know this system. I'm trying to learn it. I've done a lot to do that in all the various areas, but I need help from them to get to it. I don't know if that answers your question.
So you're not gonna gauge a percentage? 75% risk of failure, 20% risk of failure? You don't have to, I'm just.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about that percentages.
But to follow up in a different way, though, for those who have embraced it, and I presume that is in part because they've gotten past the learning curve. Okay, here's what my screen used to look like. Here's what it looks like now. Here's what I used to ask it to do. Here's what I can ask it now. Are they generally seeing more utility, less spent time, capacity to do other things with the system?
I think that's a mixed bag. Thinking about codes, it feels like they may have a couple of extra steps to go through to do what they do today. One of the things that I think will be a win for them, though, not just codes, but other departments, is the ability to see everything at a property level, from data to documents to images. All that stuff can be stored right at the property level. So we've already started to put some of that stuff in there so they can see it. But there's a lot more to do because, as you know, the city is pretty heavy paper based. So getting those paper documents into electronic images is a pretty massive undertaking. But once we have it, then we can get those images into the system, and I think they'll see benefit with that. Plus, they'll be able to go out into the field and look at things on their tablets related to a property that they're working on. So it's going to take time, and I know there's people who are very resistant to change. It's how we've done it for 20 years. Why do we have to do something different? But we've got to get there, and I'll do everything I can to make that happen. And let me kind of back up to the mainframe systems for a minute. They're all homegrown. At one point in time, there was probably 25, 30 people in IT. They had the staff to develop it, to maintain it, to give it the care and feeding it needed. We're down to 2 people. One is 65 years old, one is 70 years old. I can't pick up the phone and call anybody and say, hey, I need help with this, because they're either retired or dead. And that's just the truth. So we've got to get off. We can't abandon it and say, let's just stay on the mainframe.
Yeah.
It just does
Well,
not.
You still had some COBOL based software.
Very heavily COBOL.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Good. Others? Well. Okay. Do you have anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay.
Sure. Can I interject something on the Paycom deal?
Sure, please do. You can come up to the table if you like.
Get a better to a microphone.
This is a good opportunity to kind of summarize where we're at with that, because not only will Tyler Muni's bill go down, but we also will no longer be paying paychecks, so that bill goes away. And in addition to that, if we had stayed with the Muni's Tyler solution, we would have had to hire at least 1, maybe 2 people full-time just to manage the payroll and the payroll taxes, which we will not have to do. We even had the opportunity to talk to a reference up in Connecticut, who this guy came into his position, and this company was a bunch of educators, schools and whatnot, and they were using units for payroll. And what he told me is that it only took him a couple of months to realize this was not the way to go. And they converted over to Paycom, and he volunteered. I didn't have to ask him. By the way, we took 1 person out of our payroll department when we did that. And in addition to the funding, even if Paycom does cost a little bit more than what we're eliminating, we're going to be able to do a lot more stuff. Things like payroll action forms, leave tracking, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot more capabilities, and hopefully we'll be able to get out of the mode where, oh, okay, here's a payroll action form. Who has to sign it next? Here you go. Down the road. So a lot of it will be just formally documented and approvable. So it's kind of a preview of coming attractions, and we're optimistic that we're going to be able to start with data conversion here next month or so, and implement sometime this year, hopefully mid-year. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anything else you'll like to have? Great. Well, we do appreciate you coming out today. We appreciate the work you've been doing and working from the dinosaurs up to the current age. So wish you success. Let us know if there's anything we can do to be assistance, and please keep us updated on the payment system and whether there's some help we can assist or provide in working out arrangements with the treasurer.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Okay. Next is the update on city's financial status. Ryan.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, board members. Good day, everybody. And just to follow up a little bit on what I appreciate, Steve, your comments on the Munis system. But just to let everybody know, countless times Steve and I have done troubleshooting exercises on various components of the system. So a lot of hard work there, but beneficial because you've really been gathering knowledge over time. Now, on the financial side, you have a handout from me. It's 4 pages. And the first 2 pages relate to the Neighborhood Services Fund. I normally leave the general fund, but that gets a little boring after a while. But so I thought I'd just bring this fund up front first. And I'm mindful of my time on the agenda, Mr. Chairman, so I'm not going to violate that. But we have a whole year in front of us, and on page 1 is the summary. You've seen this previously. It includes the heart of the fund, the 3 boroughs, and the total for the specific fund. And then there's 2 columns to the right that represent the institutional legacy funds, sanitation and disposal, which are still active as far as receiving grant type, or I'm sorry, lien type revenue into the city. And the fund balance, cash position of that fund is down a bit over $500,000 for the year. Part of that relates to, I'll comment later on that on page 2, but it primarily relates to not quite as strong of a performance of disposal revenue for the city. One thing I'll point out in the sanitation fund, there is an expenditure of $263,000, and that's unusual because typically all we have in these older legacy funds are revenue. But that was support. That was a internal transfer to help funds. At the middle of last year, there was the settlement, the achieved settlement of the Public Works Complex location. That was $1.9 million. And what countered that, by the end of the year, the city also achieved a transfer of $2 million for the trash delinquency relief program. So those 2 extraordinary transactions basically offset. So the fund is down to not quite 5.1 million in cash fund balance the end of last year. And what's not reflected here, but what you see monthly from the controller's office are encumbrances that are included, which represent purchase orders, and we call them contract commitment or encumbrances. So that total at the end of the year is a little over $500,000, which brings the budgetary balance down from the cash position by that amount. And the city is currently in the midst of a budget adjustment reallocation process with City Council, which has been introduced, reflecting these encumbrances or commitments that are rolling forward from 25 into 26. And there's a corresponding related budget adjustment that applies. So page 2 of 4 just is a comparative of some of the more significant items in this fund, neighborhood services. It's a budget to actual, and then what is in boldface are the amounts for current year 26. Namely revenue for the main fund, refuse disposal revenue. The boroughs are listed there. And then down below, the predominant expense that comes out of this, one of the more significant expenses, of course, is what the city pays to the authority, Laxwama, for tipping fees. I'd like to point out, I think we did a relatively reasonable job in budgeting especially for the tipping fees. The city pays to Laxwama. You can see that there are increases built in for that expense for next year due to consumer or the increase in the tipping fee rate for 2026, which was reasonable. I mean, it was a marginal increase. And then also for the three boroughs, there's new intergovernmental agreements that reflect increases in the rates for those customers. The revenue above for the three boroughs was very reasonable when you look at budget to actual. And then up on top again for the city's main revenue source of that fund, the refuse revenue was close. It fell short of budget, but the disposal revenue was down a good bit by over $400,000. So I think that primarily represents why the city did not achieve a stronger actual revenue in for the fund for 25.
Any idea what with that?
Again, I think it comes back to our collection
Okay.
ability and achieving it. And for 26, we're keeping the budget at 5 million for refuse, and we have 11 million, as you can see, for disposal. It's less than 25's budget, but it's still a bit above what the actual was from 25. The hope is that we'll have a better return on collection efforts. So that completes that fund. If there's any questions, no questions, I'll move to the general fund, which are on the next 2 pages on page 3. And I know the board members see this monthly from what we provide to MADRA at DCED every month. And this is, again, just a full year's worth of activity for the general fund. And the city, it resulted in expenses over revenue for the year of 4.1 million, but that primarily is the timing of the capital fire protection allocation from the state. And we budgeted for 5 million for the year. And of course, that was approved by the state to go up to 7 million. I was thinking we would actually achieve that by the end of December, but we did not, but it has been received. That's the good news. It's been collected within the last week or so. So that check actually materialized. Back when we were doing the budget, I think I communicated to council that our cash position would be somewhere between 21.5 and 22 million. Based on that, having to command receiving that 7 million by the end of the year, which did not happen. So we have a cash position of almost 14.4 in the general fund. Now, the encumbrances, which I mentioned for neighborhood services, it's a huge amount that's out there at the end of 25. It's 19.7 million. But of that total, 16.5 million really revolves around Broad Street Market. And number one, if you factor that out, our encumbrances rolling forward would be 3.2 million, which is really in the comfort zone of what we've seen historically for the general fund. Now it's out there, and as you know, this is a multi-year project. I don't anticipate cash out the door of 16.5 million during the current year, but we still have to budget for this so that the encumbrances can keep moving forward. And of course, as I mentioned, the capital fire protection for last year was received in this month. If all goes well, the city will receive a normal appropriation in September of this year, which would bank up to be another 7 million. So currently, with part of this budget reallocation asked of council, we were asking them to have a revenue adjustment to reflect 14 million being received in 26 as opposed to 7 million. On the last page, on page 4, is just from Eunice. It's just a detailed summary of all of the city's all of the revenue that comes in by our subcategories. And the ones I have check marked on the far left, I think are good to note, where you're seeing really good budgeting with real estate taxes, and that's sort of a tough animal to tackle right now. Again, this is 2025 budget to actual. Real estate transfer tax was extraordinarily high by over $1 million, and that's always tough to gauge. We lagged a bit with our earned income tax and local services tax, EIT and LST. They performed slightly below what we expected. Our mercantile business privilege tax was spot on at 8.4 million, so that was a good result that's reflected there. And down below, as I mentioned, our intergovernmental revenue is down primarily because of the timing of the capital fire protection not being realized in 25. Miscellaneous revenue is significantly down, but that's predominantly insurance proceeds that we anticipated related to the Broad Street market. So that there was really no resulting receipts in 25, but we are budgeting for that to occur in 2026. And interfund transfers was way low compared to budget. That relates to the biggest piece of that is the $6 million RACP that's still in play to benefit back to the general fund for the stadium renovation upgrade project. So that covers the general funds. Any questions on that, board members?
Just on that list, so just I know word yet on when that potential reimbursement may occur, other than hopefully sometime this fiscal year.
That's about what I'd say. You
Okay.
don't have a solid time
No
frame.
news.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just one more item, if I could, Mr. Chairman. I mentioned the roll forward process that's underway, through city council. We're going through the process we normally go through this time of the year. An update on audit status for the 2023 audit. We're getting closer to the report stage, starting to draft related items for the financial statement, including footnote disclosures. We've had an extra task this year with the new GASB requirement that relates to subscription-based IT agreements. It's GASB 96. I was thinking of it right when Steve was talking through his presentation. So we had to take a dive into our existing agreements and contracts to figure out what in the world does the auditor want to see. So we developed a big spreadsheet for potential and review, and they reviewed it and they trimmed it down to what really are the heart of such agreements. So I think we're very close to that. Again, these are accrual type entries that relate to recognizing related liabilities and right to use type assets. We went through the same thing last year with the GASB 87 pronouncement on lease arrangements. And actually, the strong intent is to get this thing done and out the door in the month of February. We were hoping we could produce a draft by the end of this month, but we've given up on that task and we're moving into February as it's finally a good solid month to get this audit issued. And the last item is I know the budget manager position in the city, of course, has been kind of near and dear to me in the last few months. So I'm looking forward to that. That's in play, and hopefully that position will be filled in the very short term. So, and Jeff, I mentioned the 203 report. I didn't know if you were going to bring that up at all.
No, I wasn't. It's still early in the year. I'm sure it's good that it's on your mind, but we have.
Okay, all right. So, thank you. Have questions? Yes.
I would still like to see more on the neighborhood services fund in terms of what it's
More
costing
money?
us. Well, more money, but more detail.
Oh,
You're great about presenting us with lots of numbers. I just don't feel yet like we've got a real handle on what these numbers mean and whether or not we're actually subsidizing refuse collections outside of Harrisburg. That's the question I'd like to see answered.
I think that's a good question, but I do think we've done pretty good analysis to show that that's not an issue. That is that we're not subsidizing the borough's trash collection. There is an issue though, so I don't want to lose that thought. But that particular original question, I think there is they could present us with more evidence of that, but we've been told that the numbers show that the three borough operations are more than covering their expense. I haven't seen the evidence.
But I'm from Missouri.
Yeah,
in that
sure.
sense, okay? So the numbers I'm seeing aren't sufficient, and maybe it's my lack of ability to read them. But I'd really like to see more about what it's costing us, what it's costing us in equipment, what it's costing us in payroll, what revenues we're bringing in, and what's going out.
I think that's a good question. Maybe you could bring that back to the table.
Another time, yeah.
Another time.
I certainly don't expect an answer on that, but
But on that subject, Jeff, I just wanted to note that at our last meeting, we had a very good conversation with Brian, that there are other expenses in the neighborhood services fund that have absolutely nothing to do with trash and recycling. And there's a question about, do they even belong there? Is that, in other words, are there things that we're paying for out of that fund using trash receipts, which should not necessarily be in that fund? And one of the things I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, mentioned was park maintenance expenses.
Right, that is accurate. In fact, on the schedule that I presented, not contradicting what you're saying, but it's summarized. I mean, there's a public works line for the city services component, which includes sanitation, and then there's the park maintenance piece. But that's accurate. That parks maintenance piece, of course, it's significant, 1.6 million for the year. And at the time this fund was developed back in 2016, sanitation was viewed, of course, as the main driving, but the decision was made. I wasn't involved as far as doing any type of analysis, like what you're saying about cost analysis. But I think the overview at that point was to try to take some form of burden off of the general fund. Which there was in public works in the general fund, there was an actual budget unit called city services. All right, and that I think was just moved, it seemed to fit. And then later, this idea of bringing the parks maintenance piece over, because it's kind of morphed into under public works for their oversight in recent times.
So the city's legal position is what's in the neighborhood services fund belongs to the neighborhood services. All.
I understand that.
and I'm not arguing.
We're not lawyers, but that it is concerning to us.
I just like to see it in a format that's more understandable, even if you show a deduction for parks maintenance.
It can certainly add more detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Got it. Yep.
Others? Okay, thank you, sir, for your report. Appreciate it. Well,
Mhm.
all right, next on the agenda was update on the grant agreement on 50,000. We actually did have a bit of that discussion already. I don't think we have anything additional to add at this point.
It's a deliverable on my plate that I intend to deliver here in short order.
Very good, thank you. That then takes us to the authority manager's update.
Very quickly, you received our monthly bills paid report. If you have any questions about any of the invoices, let me know. And one of the things you'll see on that report is that we submitted our annual 1099s to the IRS through a service that we use, called 1099 online, which makes it very simple. It's actually a terrific website. I'm not endorsing it, but I am. That's how we get our 1099 out to our vendors every January.
Any questions for Jeffrey? Okay. Update on appointments. No news. We continue to have discussions. We're actually working with the city legislative delegation on those appointments. The two that are outstanding are the House Minority Leader and the governor. But there may be some shuffling on the deck to get all that accomplished. And I think there are a couple names under consideration, but we go back to the drawing board every couple weeks anyhow. So
It would be good for you all.
It would be wonderful to have some flexibility on establishing a quorum for these meetings, yes, among other things. Plus additional voices and perspectives.
Right.
So, there you go. All right, is there any other business from members of the board? Okay, then we will open our time for
We have
public comment.
quite a few people in the audience today. You're welcome to make comments or statements. We're happy to hear from you. If you could just give us your name and address, or at least where you're from, so we have some sense. And as I think you noted at the beginning of the meeting, the chair wanted to point out that we're not doing Q&A, but we're happy to hear your comments. And your voices matter to us. So whoever would like to raise their hand and give a statement, please feel free. Happy to hear from you. Anyone? Yes, please, your name, sir, for the, you're good at the group.
Hi, I'm Steele Andrews. I have a house on 922 South 16th Street. And I've been here for a couple of years now. I have 3 properties in Harrisburg. I invested somewhat in my retirement, thinking this was a good decision. I've been very confused since I got here, trying to figure out what I'm doing. I'll go to different meetings. This seems like some progress has come from this group. We can see that in the numbers, but how do we have sustainability, which I think has been addressed before, if we don't have a plan? You keep talking about the state and how it's the mass exodus from the city. And I can't find numbers. We don't have newspapers anymore, really, so trying to find information is very difficult. But I think I heard a number of million square feet of CT offices. And then I keep hearing people, yeah, we want this building goes back. But if I understand correctly, a state or municipal property does not pay the same contribution to property tax. So why did we? It seems like an opportunity to get that down. But what I fail to understand is how the state factors into this intergovernmental.
Sure.
Where if the state has withdrawn, we kind of left us desolate with empty office space. Is there any interest in them to help repurpose this? They want to partner with me to see how we can utilize this space to make it the tax funding property. While the city seems to have monitored their expenses better, but where are we getting? How are we moving forward? And we've got some big problems, and so this plan is critical because we have the tax issues to discuss, we have growing problems with paying for the needs we pay. And we've got parking problems. I've wondered how much Mechanicsburg depends on the parking revenue as a tax source. But that seems to be how Harrisburg looks at parking. That's a revenue source for the city, where parking is a detriment. My investment company left the city because of parking. So I wonder how much teeth will this plan have if the chamber does the study? How inspired will the city be to follow it? I just don't know where we're making any progress if we've gone so long without a plan. So
We appreciate your comments. It's meaningful to us. We're an independent agency and to watch the finances of the city. I think that's what the board does, but we have played a part in this planning process, which you mentioned. And I think you'll find if you read our letters of opinion on our website, much of what you're saying is similar to the letters that have been approved by this board.
I'm just not sure how effective this board is.
I think that's always a question.
Yeah, all you do is monitor expenses.
Sure.
Because we're treading water.
Well, we are part of the future planning process. That's all I'd say. Not just to look back, but also the planning for the future. That is part of our requirements under our state law that created this.
Well, I'm really hungry to see where we're going.
Sure.
$50,000 doesn't seem like a very big sum to do with that.
We'll see how it all goes, but I think you're in the place where we're in a lot of agreement. So And we talk about things like parking here, and the future of the downtown and its office space. So you're hitting on the same topics that we talk about. Appreciate.
It would be nice if the state jumped in too.
We don't disagree. I always tell you, is you're welcome to come to our meetings. You'll find over time, now that you're here,
And you're for at the last one.
that's great. There are things going on here,
So
so.
waiting.
No, government's a slow process, but we're on the same team, so that's good. All right, yes, sir, please introduce yourself and group.
Hi, my name is Kevin Burrell. I live at 230 North Street, downtown Harrisburg. Got area neighbors. I'm a friend and neighbor. Got a coworker. I've been, Hancock, and another neighbor friend, Doug. I'm just really interested, in the revitalization of downtown Harrisburg. I was really impressed with the meeting that happened this past summer when something from, not from Lancaster, he did a lot of work in Lancaster, came, spoke. The biggest takeaway for me was the engagement of neighborhoods in that revitalization. That the revitalization that happened in Lancaster is not just about the downtown, it definitely, the neighborhoods feel very connected to us. A throughway connection pipeline, always in whatever happens downtown impacts them positively. And that got me thinking that whatever happens in Harrisburg needs to do the same thing, that piece. And I'm just really interested in the question, how can local neighborhood organizations such as CAN, such as Strike Pope, President Town, Shark Organization, Summit Terrace, Old Uptown, all these organizations, how can representatives of them be connected to downtown Harrisburg, which is leading the effort? Sure.
We don't have the answer yet, but I will note that when Doug, who's our representative on the economic development project, has said from the beginning, and I don't want to speak for you, that this is a collaborative effort that will include stakeholders and not just the downtown, but the neighborhoods. So I don't know that there's a plan in place yet. You know, speak to, but I know that's the goal. Just like you mentioned, I think once again, we're all singing from the same sheet of music.
So I'll expand a little bit on remarks I made earlier. When the mayor, president of council, other vendors, interests met with the governor a couple of weeks ago. A very clear point that was already recognized, but also called for from the administration is to understand that a plan that comes together requires a plan that has value, requires collaboration and unity among the community. And that's not just unity between the mayor and council, that's unity of understanding with neighborhood groups, with vendor groups, with restaurateurs, with all of the interests that come together and form a community. And so the very clear understanding that Creative has as they embark on getting consulting assistance and developing a plan are a couple of things. First, you need to understand your marketplace. So what is our percentage of residential occupancy? What is our percentage of state occupancy square footage? What are the trend lines on each of those things? Is that trend line a good thing or a bad thing? And if it's a good thing, how do you do more? If it's bad, how do you reverse it? Do you have agreement from the neighborhoods that their voice is heard? Because you aren't going to have a vital neighborhood if the neighborhood is disconnected from the planning process that you're engaged in. And so it's a lot of things to keep on the table. It's a lot of voices to bring to the table. They're working on a structure that will try to address that because they know the success is going to be based on the great ideas that they get from the neighborhoods, and then how you put that all together in, number one, a comprehensive plan, and number two, a plan that has distinct outcomes. Not that it doesn't just represent platitudes and a wish list, but has specific identifiable projects, specific trend lines that need to be addressed, specific markets that need to be tweaked in one way or another, infrastructure that the city has charge of, and how that might be improved to aid or not, at least not limit development and redevelopment. So it's all of those things. One important shift that our organization has had is, if you go back to all of our prior reports. You're going to see economic development as a something that we've been calling for. We believe the city has acknowledged that. The city has not had adequate staffing to do a full-on plan, and obviously with our current impasse on budget, even less. So we need to go to outside sources. I think part of the reason for going with Creedic is that they have a capacity, and based on political processes, and I'm using a small p, and I'm not talking about mayor council, but rather private sector operational capabilities, we can move a little bit more expeditiously and while still bringing all those interests to the table. So ultimately, it gives us an opportunity to move forward more quickly and a good bit more comprehensively. And that's the intent. And then related to that, again, you mentioned neighborhoods, not downtown. Downtown for us has shifted in priority because that is where we see the single biggest difficulty for the city's finances in a current real time frame. When we're talking about the reassessment of commercial properties, in particular office space, because of declining usage and then declining rentals and rental rates being a determining factor for property assessment, they're winning their appeals. And so we're seeing a significant reduction in property values downtown. That means the percentage of the property tax base is borne more to a greater degree by residential properties. And so that's just one indicator, one reason why we need to focus first. Our emphasis shifted toward downtown revitalization. That is not to ignore the neighborhoods. That is not to say they're not part of a comprehensive economic development effort, but we have a first priority now to rebuild downtown and then bring the neighborhoods in with that. I don't know if anybody else wants to add.
Sounds like a plan. Any other questions?
Appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy.
Yeah, for Peter DCD, I know we're not doing Q&A, but point of clarification, do you have a timeline on when expected for the lawsuit?
I think the only date we have is when the
Briefs are
briefs
due.
are due, which is tomorrow.
I think by the end of this week, I believe.
There's filings due tomorrow, but it is really at the baby step stage.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're not even close, the pleadings aren't even close to being finished. So we're supposed to be this junction, but they're nowhere.
Just for layman, is this nowhere near being like 6 months or like 6 years?
Yes.
I will let it go on 6 years, so.
Okay.
They might not be here in 6 years.
Our office has the ability to stop it.
So the answer is not exactly. Okay.
And in point of fact, that's why our amicus argues for a mediated, non-judicial solution.
Because of cost too.
Because cost and time.
All right, do you have any questions?
Yeah, who's the attorney law?
We're using our general counsel, which is Michael Cassidy here. He's our attorney and he's the one who's filing all the things on our behalf. Any other questions from anyone? Hey, we appreciate everybody coming tonight. If you haven't signed the sign-in sheet on your way out, please make sure you do. It's important we capture your attendance. And I'll turn it back to the chair.
Thank you. You'll note on the agenda, there's also listed a potential for executive session at the end of the meeting. We do not have a reason to hold executive session, so we will not be doing that. And so I will call then instead for a motion to adjourn.
So
Second, okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much. Next meeting is Wednesday, February 25th.
4:37 p.m.